Welcome to Women Investing in Women. Robin and I do this program on a weekly basis because it is about time for us as women to rally around each other and truly tell our stories and lift each other up. Have you ever noticed the term used is history, his story? The European white male writing about the rest of the world has become our collective history. But why should we settle for it? Why not take our power back, tell our own stories from our perspective, and let our voices be heard, and in the process, change the dynamics of how women can step in to lift each other up professionally. We have mastered the art of doing this socially, but because of the intra-sexual competition created in a professional environment by the male world, we still haven't mastered the art of how to cross that threshold in the professional world. So Robin and I are passionate about taking what's working in the personal space, applying it in the professional space, and giving women the power to truly embrace their whole energy and rise up to what they were meant to be. Take it away, Robin.
Beautiful. Well, I am so thrilled to have Jamie on our show. I call her a MAP sister. We both got our Master of Applied Positive Psychology from the University of Pennsylvania. Jamie, a couple of years later, she was fully a COVID class. I was only partially a COVID class. And she made the most beautiful post on Mother's Day about all the women in her life that have uplifted her, that have supported her, that have mentored her. And as soon as I saw her post, I said, Kas, we have to have Jamie on our show, because we not only are highlighting women who have uplifted women and supported them, we also want to focus on the generation coming up, or even older women for that matter, but women who have been uplifted, have been supported. So Jamie, we totally want to hear how you feel you've been supported by the women in your life, and then talk a little bit more about how you are then paying it forward.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, first of all. It is exciting to be in this style of conversation. And with the two of you that are so avid for this work, it's even more exciting. So thank you for having me. And I was trying to figure out, how do I get my head around the hundreds, thousands of women that have been the groundbreakers, the ceiling shatterers, the space makers for me as a person, and so many people in especially the last 100 years. We've had women that have been breaking through things to see what we can make together based on our potential, like you were saying, Kas. And I wrote down glass breakers and shakers, space makers, and marathon mavens. So there, I have so thousands of women that I wish that I could speak their name in 25 minutes. I don't think I could do it. And so instead, I have created these categories for myself to see that there have been women that have galvanized the spaces that exist, that have been created over time, and they aren't necessarily supportive to women. So there are women, there's this woman, Bev, that she was the first woman that noticed me for my potential in a professional space. And she was one of the first women in the banking, leadership in banking in the county that I lived in. And so she got to galvanize space to see her own potential. And it was not simple. I think it was very challenging at the time. And then she could see my potential because she had lived it and she had tested her own. And so she recognized me. And then my mom, my mom is a central point for me understanding my value, and what her mom poured into her in understanding her self-worth, and then what my mom poured into me. And I've never been, you both were mentioning it before we started recording, but I've never been a subtle person. I'm someone that I am a strong flavor from the moment you interact with me. And usually it's positive, one that you really like, maybe akin to something like lime, like the taste of lime. It's very good, but it's very strong. And so it's been interesting. My life is filled with moments where I'm testing, is this a place for the zest of lime, or is this a place that isn't ready for lime? And so I am made up of all of these stories of women that have invested in me and for me in the past and for the future. And those are just a couple of them. And then there are space makers that have created space for me in this moment, where me becoming a consultant, it's because of people who have showed me it's a possibility. And then the marathon mavens beside me, like the two of you, where we're growing beside each other and asking hard questions, and then seeing what we can make in the world in support of each other. So that's just a little bit, as I was thinking about this conversation, that I have kind of pulled together that helped me distill some things.
Beautifully said, Jamie. I
Thank
love
you.
the picture you're visually painting. And I believe every woman, every child, every person should just fully embrace who they are without
Yes.
apology. We are
Yes.
meant to live a certain way, uniquely created for our purpose. So be loud and proud, right?
Yes.
And embrace your true self, because those who will accept you. Everybody else will have to deal with it.
Right. And they can, at some point, they may say, you know what we need right now? Some lime zest. And then they'll come to me.
So talking about lime,
Yes.
lime is not just a powerful ingredient, it's also a preservative.
Yes, it
So
is.
I am going to flip the script a little bit from how you brought the analogy in. I come from a culture where we preserve things in lime and honey, right?
Mm.
And lime and honey as a combination, you add a little turmeric and pepper, and it fights every disease that the human lifestyle creates, and it creates holistic wellness if you do it in an empty stomach, right?
Mm-hmm.
To me, lime is a wellness ingredient. It is something that preserves, and it's something that enhances. So if we go there with your analogy, where do you see your life that has been created and made space for, and other people running the marathon with you, and women who have shattered the ceilings for you? Where do you see your future going as this lemon zest, as you preserve, as you propagate, and as you create wellness in humanity around you?
That's a phenomenal question. And I love the analogy continuation that helps my brain to think about the preservation part, because my interests have recently expanded to economics, which I would never have guessed. I was a theater kid. I studied the arts. I studied communication in college, organizational communication. am very invested in psychology. So I didn't think economics was going to be one of my interests, if I'm honest. But lately, and because of the MAP program, I recognized that my ability to see things differently, as other folks have, especially people who aren't necessarily represented in certain communities or thought communities, economics tends to be predominantly men. And so to have someone that is asking questions about redesign, even the artistic part of me, man or woman, the artistic part of me is asking, how does it contribute to human well-being? How does it contribute to the continuation of our sustained human progress? That includes the earth, that includes people, that includes, certainly can include profit, but profit cannot be the primary if we want to create an existence that is supportive to people. And so that is something that I'm going after right now, that I think, so Kate Raworth is the one that brought me the most excitement, because she studied economics and she realized the limitations of our historical information. And so she just made something new. And I think that that's going to be something that I become a distinct part of. I am uncertain of how it will unfold, but I can't wait to invite more women into it.
You know, it's interesting what you say, because I know that in the past you worked with the organization 10,000 Villages, which is involved in fair trade, which is extremely important. However, that's just one piece of the puzzle. And I actually love economics. I think it's absolutely fascinating. I totally agree with you that we need a new lens through which to view economics and capitalism in its best sense. And so I'm wondering what would be some ideas, and also keeping in line with women investing in women. What are some ideas you've thought of how we can bring a more sustainable and equitable and fair trade-ish type of model and blend that with capitalism, which obviously works, but blend it so we have, I don't know if I want to call it a female perspective on all of it, but some ideas you've had along those lines on merging those ideas.
So I would, so I hope you allow me a little bit of creative friction. I would say that capitalism has been successful for what it was made to do 200 years ago, 150, about 150, 200 years ago. It was made to measure what we were making. It's linear. So it's what we were making, and we take stuff to do that. So we have resources, whether it's human resources, earth resources, and then we make something, and then we sell it, and then there's waste. And so there's this line that happens, and you measure the profit only based on how many things did you make or sell, and so the oversimplification is an imbalanced way of looking at things. So it's not that it doesn't work, it's that it's too narrow to be representative of the whole picture. So my suggestion or ideas, I love that question, Robin, because I have tons of them, and being able to communicate them makes sets my heart on fire. So thank you. I would say that one of the things we can do right now as individuals, because sometimes economics feels so far away from our daily conversation, but we're living it every day. And it's shifting our beliefs to understand that everything we purchase has an impact, that everything we purchase has waste, that everything we purchase impacts people. And then understanding who are the companies, what are they doing to their employees, to the earth, and having just little bits of knowledge that we gain over time. Societally, that has a massive impact because we are the majority to be the ones impacting the economy. So as a middle class, I mean, I feel like I'm part of the middle class to represent. These are just things that our belief systems reinforcing the existing archaic system. So the system's just old. And just like with software technology, you have to update things. And that's my, that would be one of the ideas I have, is essentially understanding that we are the impactors. It's not that the economy is done to us, because sometimes it feels that way because we only have a couple dollars that we're putting into things. We need to understand that our beliefs also can affect the change for the future if we understand where our dollars are going.
I love the question Robin just asked you, Jamie, and I am excited about where you're taking the conversation.
Thank you.
So given my background and my 3 years career in finance and economics, so I come from the framework where the financial and economic outcome is human behavior.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a pure science, it's a behavioral science, right? So when we dial back, capitalism 1776 was intended to create the wealth of nations with proper checks and balances in place. But in the last 200 years, we've corrupted it, right? And truly profits are looked upon in the right sense as a triple bottom line. Environmental viability and environmental bottom line preservation and growth, within that, societal and economic viability and growth, only when those two are stable and viable, corporate profits and growth can happen. So we have corrupted the triple bottom line concept. We have corrupted the capitalism intent. And we've created this GDP equation where it only values what is repeatedly created. And if you destroy to recreate, it's like giving you points.
Correct.
But there is, the United States has predominantly embraced GDP, but the whole world coming out of Bhutan looks at gross national happiness. The United States looks at it too, but it never talks to its constituencies about it. So what is your thought on integrating gross national happiness as a human progress measure in the context of triple bottom line and the original intent of capitalism, all of them integrated with your creativity to give us what was intended instead of what has been bastardized?
That's a big and spectacular question, and it's really fun to get to talk this big. I so often avoid the economics conversations because I can bore people with some of the things that I'm really curious about. So this is very exciting to not only be able to bask in your knowledge, but also have such knowledgeable questions. I would say, in a short answer, which is going to be limited in context, but the way that we are teaching people is something that's integral to understanding how they are valuable. And so one of the key things, whether or not gross national happiness is the measurement that is chosen, one of the key things that I recognize in the US is a lack of education around what you said, the standing in the fullness of self, and then the addition of community potential. And that is something that educationally we are pushed to have a college degree from a really impressive school. We're pushed to get a job that pays us a lot of money. We're pushed to grow into these roles that maybe we're not excited about or ready for because we have been measuring things in such a narrow way. And our education continues to not have a ton of reinforcement around growing ourselves as people. And so then the issue is, even, I would say, before measuring gross national happiness, we need to help people understand their own value as an individual and as a community member, or whether it's local community, global community. And that's one of my greatest passions, is bringing people the understanding of their own self-worth amidst a season in our economic system that makes especially those of us in the US feel like we should have a dollar amount hanging over our head for our value. And that is so frustrating and sometimes saddening, because that is not the value of a person. The output, the financial output, is not the value of a person. And that, so I hope that that answered your question. That is distinctly something I'm passionate about.
Yeah, definitely. A great questions, great answers. So hopefully this dovetails into that. But the notion that the isolated bottom line is not truly the bottom line, that we need to look at what is the impact on the environment, on the individual. And one of my really huge things that I'm passionate about is helping organizations be humane, ethical, and resilient. So how can we, creating workplaces where, as you say, people are valued, not just as a dollar sign hanging over their head, but valued as a human being. And the notion that companies that operate that way actually have a better profit.
Correct.
In how we come to think of it now, than those who don't. And so what would be some of your ideas since you're now starting your new consulting firm? Congratulations in
Thank
bringing
you.
fabulous ideas to the world. What would be some of the ways you could maybe demonstrate to traditional companies that if you behave humanely, if you behave ethically, if you behave with principles of resilience and positive organizational scholarship, that your bottom line is going to get better? What are some ways that you could encourage people to think along those lines?
It's a great question, Robin. I, speaking from because of living in the US and kind of that deficit focus on understanding things with a dollar amount, my recommendation as it stands, so because we haven't shifted our belief systems to be holistic yet, I would recommend to businesses to start measuring things that they're not measuring in ways that give anonymity and support to their employees. So if you can measure engagement and understand that your employees are disengaged or engaged, you're a little bit ahead of the game, because I think Gallup put out something recently that said 1 out of every 5 employees is engaged. So the amount of people that are disengaged in their work is very high. And your opportunity to bring people along with the fullness of who they are means that you have so much more opportunity for success in your business. It's one of the richest missing pieces, I think, in so many business spaces. And the other thing you can do is just listen. This sounds so ridiculous and maybe oversimplifying, but the list, I see you both laughing, I imagine from experience. So from my experience, one of the hardest things for leaders, because of their rich knowledge and their position of authority, is to listen to what the people are saying, because it's challenging to grow. It's challenging. And so if you hear that your employees are disengaged, it's probably easy to take it personally, but don't. Gallup said it's 1 of every 5 that's engaged. So the likelihood is that most of your employees are disengaged. It means you have opportunity. And that's the part that I think seeking the support to the employees, listening to the employees, they'll give you patterns. They will show you the patterns to address the gaps in the employee experience. So I created a position at 10,000 Villages when I was working there that was called the Employee Life Cycle Cultivator. And that position was to assess each element of the employee experience, and that was with their voices. So they did surveys, they told us what was going on, and then to build out the highest gap areas. So onboarding needed enriched, development needed enriched. And so that's the work that I did. And the most important thing was to just listen to what they were saying and the patterns, and then take action on it. And it was incredible to watch the engagement increase because of these almost transactional things that we were doing. And what was the other thing I was? Oh, the other thing is the idea of bringing profit to your organization through your people. If you don't understand their value, it's going to be really hard to do that, to actually translate those things.
Brilliantly said. Brilliantly
Thank you.
said, Jamie. As we start winding this conversation down, I want you to take a moment and talk about if you were to give women 2 or 3 tips, truly embrace who they are without apology, embrace who they are and bring their true self forward, so that they can first value themselves, so that other people can start valuing them. If we don't have the confidence, other people are not going to take us seriously, right? So it all starts from within. And what are 2 or 3 tips that you would have for women as you start your consulting journey to help everybody? Women are 51% of this population, right? How do we lift up the 51% so that the whole can thrive?
Oh my goodness, this is so exciting. I want them all to be, I want us all to be lifted. I'm so excited about this conversation. One of the things that I've recently done that has been really helpful as I'm dealing with the doubt that I have all of this self-doubt that comes in when I start something new, because that's what happens with the human brain. The human brain is like, oh no, a risk. I should probably panic or feel anxiety and that's survival instinct. That's not negative. But when that rises, when the doubt rises, reach out to someone you trust. Ask them about that doubt. Don't let that doubt sit in your brain. Don't let it become something bigger. When you doubt yourself, ask someone about it. Maybe there's something you can learn, or maybe they'll respond and say, that's hilarious. And then you get to laugh about that voice that's inaccurately representing you. So reach out when you feel doubt. And then another thing I would encourage is test your future identities. So we're growing constantly and we can't help it. We meet new people, we learn how to ski, whatever the things are. As you grow as a person, keep testing new identities. So who is the next Kas? Who's the next Robin? Who's the next? And stepping into those individual states just to see if you like them. Because I think we often feel like we're stuck. And that's not true. And we can test future identities with the people we trust and feel safe with and feel valued by, like you said, Robin. I hope that's useful.
Definitely. Great golden nuggets.
So go ahead, Robin.
Okay, yeah, so I wasn't sure how much time we have left on your interview here, but oh, I know, a question that we always try to ask our guests just quickly is, what have been some of the challenges you have faced, either internal or external, that you've had to work through or overcome in order to get to where you are today?
It's a great question. One of the biggest ones was when I was younger, I was bad at test taking. I'm still bad at test taking, very likely. So I thought that was a representation of my intelligence. I thought that was showing me that I couldn't do big things or I couldn't take on things that I was passionate about because I probably wasn't smart enough. And I recognize now what was happening was it was a misconnection between the way that learning was delivered to me and the way that I learn. And so that was one of the earliest things that I think held me back in a way that I look at now and I think, oh, little Jamie, had you only known, you're a great writer. You love talking to people. Those are two powerful things that the world is hoping for. They want more of it. And so once I got, honestly, I was still uncomfortable in undergrad because there were multiple choice tests and I had to study and study and study. What was easy for some folks was not for me. And then I got to this master's program and I thought, finally, it's just writing. And I know that it's the opposite for some folks, so I feel for them because that was something for me that I just thought I wasn't smart enough to do big things because my test scores were not high. And so I didn't go to college for a couple of years because I thought, well, why bother? I'll just work full time and that's something that I recognize now, the limitations that I put on myself, but also that system put on me made it harder for me to see my own potential. So keep asking questions, folks, about the systems.
Always, always. And that is such an important point because education today is delivered for ease of teachers' measurements and scoring as opposed to the child's learning and development. So I love the fact that you brought that on as a point that every person, especially women, have to overcome.
Right.
Because don't allow the environmental, static, old-fashioned processes to put a label on us. That is such an amazing and simple thought to take us off the air with this interview. We are going to make sure all our audience have both your website and your LinkedIn information.
Thank you.
Is there one closing thought in 30 to 60 seconds you want to share with our audience as we bring this?
A closing thought. Step into more of who you are. More, even more.
Beautiful.
Thank
Love it.
you.
That is great.
Thank you, Jamie. Thank you, Robin. It's
Awesome.
always
You.
such
Very
a fun
exciting. Very
co-hosting
exciting.
with you.
Thank you.
And I would like to bring us to a close with a very important image Jamie painted for us. You know, when we women go to buy clothes, we try them on. We try jewelry on, we try hats and shoes on. Try your new version of you on. Just try it. You might fall in love with her.
Mhm.
And
Beautiful.
as you try on the new version of you, when you see other women trying their new versions on, lift them up, encourage them. Because after all, it is our primary responsibility to invest in each other so that we can lift each other and together we can thrive.
Beautiful. Thanks.
Mhm.